1. I work in a mid-scale gastropub that is thought to have snooty and picky customers. But our clientele is as diverse as any place, I'd say. This one night in particular, I get set a 5-top of 35-plus-year adults. And things go off without a hitch. Good rapport, get some maps, entrees ordered. One of the entrees ordered is our shabu shabu. Our menu describes it as a Japanese hot pot with veggies and a Japanese dashi. It's essentially a bowl of ramen that we charge way too much money for, but that's another story. The description doesn't explicitly state that it's ramen, but hey, ask me what it is and I'll tell you. So the customer orders the shabu shabu, and I ask if they wanted any protein, and she chooses chicken. Entrees come out, and I ask if everything looks good, and if I can bring out anything else in the meantime. They ask for another round of drinks, so I ring them in, and as I drop them off, I ask how everything tastes so far, and they say good. Alright, on to the next task. About 5-ish minutes later, I get flagged down by the table, and the customer who ordered the shabu shabu, they did take a few bites, is now telling me she didn't realize it was soup, and that she doesn't like it and doesn't want it. Okay, then why didn't you tell me when I dropped it off? I tell her I'm sorry about that and I can get her anything else instead, and she says no. So I go to one of the two managers scheduled that night. She is a server manager, the other is not. They are still the same level of authority, and tell her the situation, that I don't feel we should take it off the bill because she had a chance to say something before eating, and she had a chance to get something else, which she declined. Manager agrees with me and says to box it up and offer it to her one last time. I come to the table with a doggy bag just in case, and she says no thanks. Now it comes time for the bill, and lo and behold, they want the shabu shabu taken off. I reiterate what my manager told me, and they want to speak with them. Not a problem. I go talk to the manager I spoke with before, and she tells me that she's busy with tables, and to ask the other manager to do it. Okay, so I go tell the other manager, and without even questioning anything, he just asks me to split off the item and gives them their new bill. Of course, the table is happy. They tipped me well, even shook my hand. But still, not the principal. Read the freaking menu and ask questions if you don't know what you're ordering. My biggest issue isn't the fact that the table didn't have to pay, but the fact that the upper management isn't on the same page or are sending mixed signals. The writing might just be on the wall. 2. So about 15 minutes after opening on a Friday, a 3-top of 2 adults and 1 young toddler asked to be sat in our back dining room, because it was still empty and quiet for their sleeping kid. Fine. It is technically way out of rotation and generally a room for larger parties. But we had room for them until 5:30 or so at least, so we let them sit back there, no big deal so far. I didn't serve them, but was in the section next door setting up my tables. Things seemed fine at first, but then I noticed the wife was sniffing. I told the server, but we figured it was just the salsa we give out. It's spicy AF compared to 99% of restaurant salsa, and does that to a lot of people. But as I continued to set up my tables, I could tell she was now in full-blown tears. I became concerned it was a domestic issue or something else serious, so I discreetly waved the server over, and we calmly asked what was going on.
It's the music. It's so incredibly loud. You're gonna wake up my poor boy. He needs his nap time. Can you please turn it down?
And by the way, we are talking soft rock from the 70s and 80s here at a very low volume. We aren't blasting NWA. Well, okay. A bit of an overreaction on her part, but sure, we can try. Unfortunately, though, our system is wired to one main receiver, or whatever you call it, and it is old like our building. So it is one volume level for everywhere. If we turned it down, it would have made all conversation in the rest of the dining room loud and awkward. If you've ever worked with music off, you'll know what I mean. The news was politely delivered, but of course, it was not well received.
How dare you refuse to do something as easy as just turning down the music so my 18-month-old can nap? I find it hard to believe anyone in the restaurant would even care if you turned it off. You're just not willing to help accommodate children here.
Then she demanded a manager. And that's when things got really good. See, we don't actually have managers. We are independently owned by a group of 3 old friends for the last 40 years, with the primary owner, let's call him Bob, being the only one who actually works at the restaurant. But almost only when it comes to things like staffing, inventory, ordering, hiring and firing, and paying the bills. He very rarely handles customer complaints unless they're really awful mistakes, or the guests refuse to speak with us anymore. The reason for that is because he's a huge fucking asshole. And does not give a single fuck about petty customer complaints. So Bob finally makes his way to the table like 15 minutes after he was told, which has him even more pissed off. As soon as Bob asks what seems to be the problem, the dad just starts lighting into him about how unaccommodating they're being, and don't you think losing a guest over not turning the music down is ridiculous? And this is for our child after all, and so on and so on. Once he is finally finished, Bob goes,
I'll tell you what, are those your waters and chips and salsa on the table?
Yeah?
Great, the exit door is right over there. Don't worry about the water or chips, my treat. I don't think this is a place for you all and your child either.
The woman starts crying harder and the man looks incredulous, and finally stammers out, "We will not be coming back." And Bob goes,
That's a great idea. We aren't the best choice for a toddler needing a nap, especially on a Friday. Maybe order our food carryout next time.
And then he just turns around and walks back into the kitchen as the guests scramble out embarrassed. 3. I work at a popular seafood chain that sells unlimited shrimp for a limited time. Perhaps that's my biggest mistake. For those that haven't gotten it before, this is how it works. You get 2 options to start. Can be 2 different kinds or 2 of the same. And it comes with a side or salad for a set price. There's 5 selections listed on the menu that you can choose from, for secret types of shrimp not listed, but can still be ordered if you know about them from being part of our rewards program. After you get your initial order, you're welcome to ask for more shrimp with no additional charge. It's the last week of the promotion, and I thought I might have escaped the worst of it. My table started pleasant, happy to celebrate one of their birthdays. When I got to taking their orders, their demeanor changed immediately.
I'll have the endless.
And I asked him which of the 2 kinds of shrimp he'd like to have.
The coconut shrimp?
I'm sorry, sir, we've actually been out of coconut bites for a little while. One of our secret options that is basically first come, first served.
I didn't say coconut bites, I said coconut shrimp.
We actually don't offer the regular coconut shrimp on that meal, sir.
Yeah, you do. We've gotten it before.
One of my all-time favorite lines.
They have it at other locations.
I recently moved from the East Coast to West Coast after graduating college. And to have a job when I moved, I transferred restaurant locations. My old place didn't have regular coconut shrimp on Endless and never has. None of them have. That's weird. We've never offered that and unfortunately don't here. Here are the options that we do have. I turned to the page in the menu for him since he had his menu closed. I go around the table and get everyone else's orders because he now needed time. One of the other guests orders a coconut shrimp appetizer to appease the other guy, which comes with 6 of them for $11.99. Endless is $15.99. No way you're getting unlimited coconut for $4 more. Anyway, I get back to him and he's staring me down with a wide-eyed look as if I had personally offended and insulted him. He picks 2 of the listed options and I ask him what he's having for his side and side salad.
I don't want a side. Give me coleslaw to go.
I ask about his salad.
I don't want a salad.
Okay, sir, can I get you something else instead? Maybe a side?
I said I wanted coleslaw to go.
So I eat his shit with a smile, put their orders in, bring out everyone else's salad and soup and bread. The rest of their dinner goes fine. I stay as pleasant as I can, pretending the beginning never happened. Periodically check in to make sure things are fine and to get more shrimp for them. I get the birthday woman her complimentary sundae and they tip me fine. All appears well. About 30 minutes later, my manager comes up to me.
Table 57 called, they said you're a liar.
I'm like, you're kidding, right?
No, they said you lied about not having coconut shrimp on the Endless, but then you brought out the appetizer. Also, they said their steaks were overcooked, but they didn't want to tell you and said it was a horrible birthday experience.
I had to laugh. They didn't say anything was wrong outside of the shrimp thing. The table threatened to call corporate. My manager explained to them that coconut is a more expensive kind of shrimp and is never offered on that deal. The bites are while supplies last, and that another type of shrimp basically replaced them. And that because they didn't raise any complaints while they were in the restaurant and finished all their food like nothing was wrong, there wasn't much she could do for them. After that, corporate wouldn't do anything either. Apparently that shut them up real quick. I couldn't believe they called in to tell my manager I was a liar. It was legitimately laughable. Thank God Endless is actually ending. 4. A little backstory. I work at an upscale steakhouse where our clientele on any given night will spend half of what I can make on a good check, so it's pretty decent folk, so to speak. However, that all changes on Sundays when we line our tables with butcher paper and serve a buffet-style brunch. Horror stories from servers who begrudgingly pick up Sunday shifts for extra padding on an already generous check will tell you tales of more than half of the checks dropped receiving the biggest of zeros. People who sit in your section the entirety of the brunch service, and an entitled group of people fresh out of church, but feeling as though they've sinned for paying the $27 price per adult, which includes bottomless champagne mimosas. So my story begins. On a rather slow Sunday with a 4-table section, 3 tables that sit 4 and 1 table that can sit 10, I pranced around as my section slowly filled. One party on 2 of my tables showed up and piled so much on their plates that they couldn't fit a second refill in, and promptly asked for a bill and left. Again, my section empty for around 10 or so minutes until my 10-top showed up and took an extra one of my tables, which I was fine with, as it seemed nothing else was to come in that day. All of them foreigners with no concept for what a buffet was, however knew enough English to be explained on how it works, and split bills 4 different ways. Absolutely no problem with them. My other tables sat idle as they waited to be set. Then, as I'm getting drinks for my 10-top, I watch as the hostess brings in 2 different couples and seats them at my last 2 tables that were open. To describe them very spot on, I might add a millennial couple to my right in one corner, and the boomer couple to my left. Now, being set consecutively has never fazed me and isn't the problem. The foreigners ate, and ate to their heart's content with absolutely no trouble at all, even going as far as staying until the end of the service to get lunch. Millennial couple had mimosas and water, which I poured a generous amount to keep them at bay, and were more than delighted to hear about it. Boomer couple, however, looked at me in utter disgust as if I was the reason they only see their families during the holidays. Egg spat out of the wife's mouth as she emphasized and demanded her free mimosa refills. The husband, through his foggy goggles and thick cigarette-stained mustache, emphatically asked for more and more coffee. Mind you, my section has 6 stairs to walk up, and I counted each and every step as if I was marching to my death, as I poured the black oil into the deep pit of a mug that man had. After not being able to stand taking care of them and their demeaning voice with urgency, I printed their check and while handing them the receipt verbatim said, "Here's your check, whenever you're ready, no rush at all." "Please rush. I will take care of that for you." Refilled the geriatrics drinks and headed off. I think they took taking care of their check as if I was going to pay for it, because as soon as I went down the stairs and back towards the soda stations, they were gone. Now I gave them the benefit of the doubt and went to check their table, but to my dismay found 4 crumpled $1 bills and nothing else to satisfy a $54 bill. So on the prowl I went. I busted through our back door in the hopes to meet them out in the parking lot, and swung the corner back to the front of the restaurant, and was so fast I met them a half step before leaving, and they acted so surprised to see me, meeting them before they could leave. The boomers then proceeded to accuse me of not telling them that I was their cashier, cursed the hostess for simply being there, said the 4 plates of food they ate were terrible, and on top of that, their card declined twice, and I had to sit there as we played Go Fish with which card would run. I tried to be nice and simply say, "Sorry for the misunderstanding," and got a predestined capital 0 on the tip line and a flying pen back to me, which was eyebrow-raising to say the least. However, they refused the hostess's help with a 16 feet solid oak door, and struggled to get out, which was satisfying as we all calmly waved. "Goodbye, have a nice day." I don't think they were waving number ones back to us, but thanks anyways, boomers. 5. Let's go ahead and set the setting a little more. Owner Carly, antagonist Linda, manager Ashley, hosts Carol and Jen. I recently got a serving job at a fine dining wine bar with fresh seafood, a gourmet cheese room, sushi bar, and scratch kitchen. It's just a part-time gig to get myself more experience, as in my other job I serve very fast, very casual American fare with a lot of tables, but with very low daily tip potential. I work each job every other day and then have Sundays off, keep my days from feeling repetitive. Only working there 2 days a week, and I've worked there 7 nights. Linda has also been here for about 2.5 weeks, but she works 4 or 5 days a week. I've known for a little while Linda doesn't like me very much. One of the last times I've worked with Linda, she was on a bartending shift and hadn't been getting out my drinks. Had a table wait 15 minutes for a glass of wine, but she wouldn't allow me behind bar, then started to loudly argue with me about whether or not I sent them in. When I found the ticket for my drink punched as a completed order, she loudly chastised me for being unprofessional in front of customers and embarrassing myself at the workplace. I very sternly said something along the lines of, "Ain't that the pot calling the kettle black?" and just kinda walked away. At the end of the night I made $115. I had to tip out dish, host, and bar. I decided $5 a piece was fair enough, considering my total, and left. Keep in mind this is a small gourmet restaurant. On nights we aren't busy, servers do our own dishes and bar, and don't do tip-outs. If it's so, hosts and dish go home early without tips. The next shift I had, Linda wasn't there, but Jen was. Jen went on to tell me that Linda told her directly that she didn't think Jen deserved tips for her job, and that it was ridiculous because that money should be going to bar. Jen told me, without prompting, that she heard how Linda talked to me the last time we worked together, and that she didn't really think that it was acceptable, but didn't want to add flame to the fire by saying something. I came into work Thursday, and we were clearly overstaffed. I was the last one on rotation, got there at 4 p.m., and by 7, I'd taken one to-go order. The couple was incredibly nice and thankful, though. Repetitively said how helpful and thoughtful I was at explaining the menu. Tipped me $6 and 1 sushi entree and a bottle of homemade salad dressing. Promised they'd come back soon and request me as their server even. Good people. After they left, I grabbed a staff drink and said later. Well, today, Sunday, Linda was again at bar. Pretty much as soon as I came in, Jen found a moment to pull me aside and tell me that while I was at my other job Friday, Linda made a complaint about Jen and I. The owner, Carly, had already pulled Jen aside to talk to her about it, and Jen heard my name wrapped up in it, so wanted to give me a heads up. Jen told me that she thinks Linda is an absolute bully and that it's really upsetting her. Carly asks to speak to me for a moment in her office, but suddenly a customer calls and asks to speak to the owner. Guess who it was? It was the nice to-go order people, who just decided to call 2 days later to, by the owner's words, rant and rave about your service. I couldn't believe my luck. Carly shook my hand and told me I did a really good job, and never talked to me about Linda's complaints. I immediately realized that knowing about Linda's complaints, but having management not know that I know, was powerful information that I could use to my advantage if needed. My shift goes on and Linda is super irate all evening. I went out of my way to sell full bottles of wine as much as I could, so that I wouldn't have to worry about her making my drinks, and got quite a few glasses of my own wine while she was servicing tables. At one point, I accidentally rung in a Pinot Noir even though it was 86th, and she flipped out. Even the owner's husband was very lightly telling her it wasn't a big deal, and was picking out an inexpensive Pinot from the wine room. She kept going on, and I finally looked at her and just said, "I'm really going to need you to be nicer to me." Grabbed the bottle offered and walked off. Not long after, I'm walking behind her in a walkway, and without realizing I'm there, she says to herself mockingly,
"I'm gonna need you to be nicer."
Later in the evening, as I'm holding a very heavy tray, she holds the door open for me, and I'm rather focused. I didn't think to say thank you. She very loudly goes,
You're welcome.
just kind of dumb, rude stuff. A 55-year-old woman working customer service should have more tact. At this point, I'm just kind of like, what do I have to lose? I've worked here for 7 days. I got the manager Ashley alone and pulled a very innocent, "Hey, I hate to be this person. I know you have a lot going on right now. But Linda has been really harsh to me, and it's gotten bad enough that I have Jan and Carly both coming up to me and saying that they aren't okay with how she's speaking to me. Ashley said she'd seen it herself a bit, and that she'd mention it without mentioning that I brought it up, and told me that they really like having me there and not to worry about it. About 10 minutes later, I see and vaguely hear Linda saying things about my service, work ethic, and making a bunch of her, like, you see, gestures. I rung in a drink to go back to bar to be annoying and nosy, basically, and Linda shut up pretty quickly. The night goes on, and closing time is afoot. Linda keeps repeatedly asking if I've printed my revenue yet, and at first I couldn't understand why. As soon as I printed out my report, she circles my total beer sales, total wine glass sales, and total wine bottle sales and tells me that those are the numbers I should be using to calculate her tip out. Keep in mind, I went out of my way to sell bottles of wine so I could avoid using her service, and sold $200 worth of just wine bottles, which was half of my total sales on this slow night. I ended up with a shit section filled with just friends of the local band that was singing. They all shared bottles of wine and apps. I'll add, I'm new enough that asking how to do tip-outs based on total drink sales was really reasonable, especially as it's not restaurant policy. I grabbed my report, all of my tips, walked up to the manager to turn in my cash for the night, and in the most innocent voice I could muster up, "Ma'am, what would be the proper tip to the bar based on my total drink sales?" Honestly, on a night like tonight, you don't even need to tip bar. We all just kinda helped each other out all night. You got some of your own drinks. Oh, well, Linda said I need to be calculating her tip based on my total drink sales. Well, no one would ever expect you to tip based on your full bottles of wine. Oh, I think she expects me to. Could you just tell me how much you think I should tip her out? So I know I didn't do it incorrectly. Does some quick math. Based on your beer and wine sales, 5% of total sales would be about $6. Thanks. I grabbed $6, placed it on the bar, and without saying anything to Linda, walked into the dish pit back room to finish my drink. I hear Linda stomping around and approach the manager with attitude.
She just completely stiffed me on a tip.
No, she didn't.
I calculated how much I should have been tipped out based on her revenue report. She completely stiffed me and walked out.
I also just calculated how much she should have been tipping you, except I figured it should have been 0. The way you're acting is completely unprofessional. You shouldn't be calculating anything on anyone's revenue reports. We aren't going to schedule you for the next week. After that, we can see if you play nice with co-workers. I left my drink at dish and headed out the back door to avoid confrontation, but had the pleasure of seeing Linda stomp to her car in a hissy fit. Never have I ever seen karma act so swiftly in my favor. Never have I ever had such a random idea go so well. Everything just kinda lined up in my favor. If I hadn't been able to push the full bottles of wine, the disagreement over whether or not I needed to tip out on bottles wouldn't have happened. If those customers had called any later, Carly would have had the meeting where she told me I was on thin ice like Jan due to Linda's complaint. Instead, I kinda just cast reflect, but I look innocent and spooked. It just felt nice. Wanted to share. Thanks for listening. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, episode 71. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Oh, 71 episodes already. Well, that time's flown by, and I'm quite happy with this series still. Okay, it is the weekend, so I'm going to keep this outro short, and as I'm recording this, I can feel Sleepy Freezer creeping upon me. And, he is quite insistent. Although my throat's a little sore, ice cream is tempting. I mean, it's icy outside, it's cold outside, but ice cream is still tempting. It's quite satisfying, though, when you're snuggled up at home. Maybe you got a duvet wrapped around you, get the heating on. So you're nice and warm. You know it's cold outside, but you're nice and warm. And you're sitting eating ice cream. Tempting, but we shall see. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, Thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.